Well, hello and welcome to that favorite time of the day when you just sit back, you relax, we bring the issues and just to discuss the topic in depth. And today we're looking at all important blocking financial loopholes. Blocking financial loopholes. Now, what's brought about this? Now, if you bear with me just a little while, I'll read a little excerpt for you just to set the conversation rolling. Now here it says, and this is from Gold Street Business, which is a business newspaper, account for the 2 billion Swiss gold, Nakyea to Minerals Commission. A tax expert, Ali-Nakyea, has indicated that Switzerland's position that it had purchased $2 billion worth of gold from Ghana in 2016 sharply contradicts the Minerals Commission figure of 1.7 billion total. Received for the metal, Nakyea observed that the situation is worrying and could contribute to illicit financial flows. That will tremendously reduce tax revenue to the nation. He said, statistics from Swiss Embassy shows Ghana exported over $2 billion worth of gold to Switzerland in 2016. India and the United Arab Emirates, which are also major markets for Ghana's gold, are yet to declare how much they purchased from the country last year. The Minerals Commission has, however, disclosed that its total export amounted to 1.7 billion in 2016, even though those who bought 2 billion. To all its trading partners, Nakyea noted that Ghana's extractive sector alone lost a total of 14.39 billion in 2015 through the illicit financial flows, and it's feared that the figure could be higher in 2016. That's why we are talking today. Swiss says they bought $2 billion worth of gold. Ghana says, well, we sold 1.7 billion. However, we don't only deal with Switzerland, we deal with all other industries. So the larger picture is that, how many of these loopholes are there and how do we block them? Because constantly we are begging and asking and borrowing for money to develop. And yet there's this big hole where huge monies are draining. That's the topic for today. My name is Nana Sakwa, the fourth chief of the famous little republic of Akwabo-Edumasa. When I come back, I am talking to the tax expert and lawyer, Ali-Nakyea. Don't go. Thank you very much for staying. Blocking financial loopholes with me in the studio, Abdullah Ali-Nakyea. My brother, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Always a joy to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Are you a lecturer?
Yes.
That explains it. Maybe that explains his talent of being able to explain things. But could this have been a mistake? Swiss saying they bought 2 billion, Ghana saying we sold 1.7. I mean, that's like $300 million gap. Could this have been a mistake?
Well, the mistake is yet to be identified because this statement was on the front page of Graphic on March 4th, Saturday. And I'm wondering, maybe Saturday we don't all look at the papers, but the Swiss envoy, the chargé d'affaires of the Swiss embassy in Ghana, was on the front page, and he was talking at the Switzerland-Ghana chamber that they were meeting. And he indicated that Switzerland imported $2 billion worth of gold from Ghana in 2016. So my issue is, what do our records show as export of gold so that we can match and see? Because if you want to measure illicit financial flows, that is where money is siphoned out of the country, either money or resources, illegally or without the appropriate documentation, then this is how to measure it. You look first at your trade partners, what report do they have, and then you compare with what your records also show. And this is only one country, and I'm looking at what is the situation for other major trading partners like United Arab Emirates, like India. Because I'm sure Ghanaians will also remember not too long ago, a company from India was sending gold out through the Kotoka International Airport. We arrested, no documentation, no taxes paid. So it is not difficult trying to establish this. I made this call because I just want to find out. We have trade attaches in our embassies across the world. What work do they actually do for us in terms of some of these statistics? Because this is the chargé d'affaires in Ghana for Switzerland. What is our chargé d'affaires or whoever the counterpart is in Switzerland reporting to us in terms of trade? Then we'll be able to monitor and see whether we are losing anything or not. I think this is something that is in the purview of Occupy Ghana as we speak, because I indicated, can we also get the statistics from the Bank of Ghana? Because all export proceeds are to come through the central bank. Right. Then we can match the three. We look at what the trade partners are saying, what our institutions are reporting, and then what we can get from the central bank. Then we will be able to conclude the analysis to find out how much we are losing.
Yeah, I was going to say 1.7, you know, maybe you're rounding up to 2, but that's a big roundup.
Yes, if we round off to 2, we'll be rounding off even only to Switzerland, but we are looking at the total export proceeds.
But at the moment, we don't have the...
We don't have the full details, but we expect them to respond and give us the full details. Then we will match with the figures that we have.
Ali, but are there laws to check things like this, or do we now have to go and sit down and bring laws? Because, I mean, the gap is quite huge.
We have laws. As for the laws, when you want to list them, you get not less than 15 to 20 of them.
Because check illicit financial flows.
Yes, because we have the Financial Intelligence Center and its act and regulations. We have the Economic and Organized Crime Office and its regulations. We have the Anti-Money Laundering Act. We have Anti-Terrorism Act, because some of these proceeds find their way through a lot of such schemes. We also have the Ghana Revenue Authority Act. We have the Income Tax Act. So we have so many of the laws that will check. Customs Act is there to be able to check movement of goods and all that. So we have the laws and we have the institutions, because these laws establish the institutions. And so we expect them to work. And that is why I always take a cue from a friend who insists that we always blame the institutions without looking at the people in the institution, because it's the people who make up the institution. So if they are not up and doing, then the institution would fail.
Funny enough, the issue of up and doing, that's what I was just writing down. I mean, we are desperate in need for money. Government after government, you know, they are almost all the time stuck, and they just need a bit more cash so that they can move. So what would be the benefit for anybody not to pay attention, you know, to some of these things?
That is even the reason for my call, because if we are to stem the tide of the illicit flows, you can see how much we are saving. Because the report by Baker confirms what the Global Financial Integrity has stated, also confirmed by what ASEP has found. If you look at the ASEP report for February 2015, it tells us that from 2002 to 2011, as reported, we lost $14.39 billion from the natural resource sector only. That is a 10-year period. So on average, we are losing 1.4 billion. Now, if that is what we are losing, I keep asking myself, how much did we go for from the IMF? 900 and something million over 3 years. So on average, 300 million a year against 1.4 billion. Are you a net creditor or a net debtor? So if you're able to block those loopholes, then either it reduces what you need to support your budget, or you don't even need it. Because if you look at the Global Financial Integrity Report for 2014, the total overseas development assistance and foreign direct investment combined is close to what we lost as Africa through illicit financial flows, Ghana inclusive.
And is this just English, or is it a fact that indeed if you block these loopholes, the money will come? Sometimes, you do some analysis. Oh, do you know how many boreholes we could have built? Do you know how many boreholes, just to throw something in the air? But, like you're saying, if we're losing 1 point, so billion, if that loophole was to block, would physically the money come into the system?
Of course. Of course. I'll give you an example of what was published in the Chronicle sometime last year. Somebody imported 14 Range Rover vehicles, 2014 model, into the country through Takoradi Port. None of the 14 vehicles was described as Range Rover. The description was Citroën 2003, Peugeot 2005. What will be the duty on those values and the duty on the brand new Range Rover vehicles? The report was made according to intelligence. They were able to uncover the deal and recover the money. So indeed, we are not going to lose. It will stay in. If we take the Indian company that was arrested at the airport, I keep asking, what came of that story? We need to get to the bottom of it. We all read it. They were arrested at the airport, going without documentation. It was seized. Where is the gold? How much was the value? What could it have saved? And, well, as economists say, if you want to look at what you are losing, you look at what we look at as the benefit we would have lost if we hadn't uncovered that deal. So economists always look at the opportunity cost. Now, if you look at what we lost over the 10-year period reported by Global Financial Integrity, it comes to 6.6% of our GDP.
That's a lot.
Take the 2017 budget and look at what we need as a percentage of GDP for capital projects, infrastructure, 1.7% of GDP. Look at what we are paying as interest on borrowings, 2.3% thereabout of GDP. So what we are losing, the 6.6, can take care of so many things. The capital projects, it can pay wages and salaries, it can pay the interest on borrowings, all combined. So it means even going forward, if we stem the trend of the illicit flows, it can conserve and help rebuild the system and the economy we find ourselves in.
Lawyer, is it practical though? Can you put checks and balances to say, look, henceforth I'm dropping this thing down or I'm stopping it?
It is practicable. How is it not practicable?
I would argue if it was, it would have been done by now.
No,
because you pass the
efforts are being made. All we call for is, can we speed it up and can we tighten it? For example, the Ghana Revenue Authority has identified one of the losses we find is from commercial transactions. It forms about 60 to 65% of the illicit financial flows. Now, these come by way of trade misinvoicing and mispricing, and that is the transfer pricing issue. Transfer pricing abuse is where related parties, usually offshore, would try to build up the cost that they give out to companies or associates in Ghana. By paying, the money moves out. Now, there is nothing wrong with trading with related parties.
Let's do this transfer thing in English. How would it
sound? That's why I'm bringing it down. The transfer pricing works this way. When you are dealing with associates and related parties,
but
the same entity? The same entity.
But in different countries.
Different countries. You invoice one another. There is nothing wrong with that. If company A in Ghana needs some inputs that company B in another country has, and they are related, there's nothing wrong with doing business. But if on the open market, whatever input it is can be had for $1 million and it is priced at $2.5 million, then there is an abuse.
But
what it would have fetched...
There's no control price.
No, what would have fetched on the open market is what is seen as the arm's length price. And there is a control price, because in transfer pricing, we have what we call comparables. The same item dealt with by companies in a similar industry would have their prices. So you can tell an average or a range. So if that item can be had between 1 million and 1.5, and you find a company getting it supplied by a related party at 2.5, you should raise eyebrows. And the rules give you the opportunity and the power to review and revise that pricing structure.
Before we come to review and revise, I mean, bringing it further down, I mean, assuming I wanted shortbread biscuits,
Okay.
and you brought me shortbread biscuits from Harold's. Somebody brought me shortbread biscuits from the Indian man in the corner. I mean, the price difference would probably be about £50 price difference.
Very well. Now, the difference in price does not automatically kickstart a transfer pricing abuse. It's only when you're unable to justify why your price is different. So they have the opportunity. That is why there is a range. Give and take all the complex nature. Maybe you have a trademark, you've built in your goodwill, put all together. And with a range of 1 million to 1.5, yours is 2.5. You need to explain for the difference of 1 million.
Okay.
Because the maximum in the range is 1.5. You have 2.5. So we are over 1 million above board. Can you explain what accounts for that? If you're able to do so, and it is acceptable by all, because everybody will understand here there are margins, there are markups, that is the nature of the trade in the world sector. You've taken account of all that and it's justifiable, no problem. But if you fail to meet the set criteria, because the transfer pricing regulations will spell out the pricing structure acceptable to the revenue, because they've looked at the international situation. And so if you are not able to meet the criteria, explain, then of course you are abusing the pricing structure. And that is what the law mandates the revenue to revise.
I see. I see. And these are all...
And this will stem the illicit flow. Because remember, the overpricing in paying out of Ghana, movement of funds are going. But if the prices were at arm's length, it will not be that much. So an excess will be a loss of revenue.
One thing I also notice with us in terms of transaction is, I mean, you can go to the bank and pretty much withdraw any amount you want to withdraw. If it's cash, just break it down in pieces and just stand there and withdraw all and go away. Elsewhere, they are so, I mean, anything about 10,000 and all alarm bells begin to ring, and you'll probably have to bring your grandmother and father to come and prove why you need more than 10,000. Now, you see, they have credit card facilities and this imaginary economy that you can live with. We don't. If we start this, no way, you're not going above 10,000. Because if you go to buy a house, it's 450,000, 3 payments. You're going to buy a car, as for that is down payment, 60,000 down payment. So if we bring this sort of regulation where no, you can't transact over 10,000 over the counter in a day and this and that, you know, how are we going to survive this side of the world?
It is going to be difficult to start such a policy at a go. It needs to be gradual. I think it's been tried before under the previous governor. If you remember, Dr. Kofi, and you saw the repercussions. When you need to bring about change, it has to be gradual. If you look at the budget, the government planned introducing point-of-sale devices. And that is going to help people to now start patronizing the cards. Because if you go to other jurisdictions, somebody would have a wallet full of cards. Why? There is a card for Maximat, one for Kuala, one for game. He has one for the fuel station. He has another for another thing. So you pick the wallet and there's no cash. And you can't steal the cards if you can't have the PIN. And so you move towards a cashless economy. And that is when we can gradually bring all this on board. If you need to make any purchases above a limit, of course, the credit card will not allow that. And then we would gradually move. But to go all of a sudden to bring a restriction, it will be like moving towards a controlled economy. And it will have all its repercussions, especially when you've been running a free market economy all this while. You need to gravitate slowly. Yes, you don't need to go through a strict command economy by trying to dictate the level of spending. But indeed, if you are able to put the system very well, the economy finds its feet, people may not have the need to hold all that cash. People may not need to purchase one-off, because they would then go into that installment arrangement depending on what is hitting the account in any point in time, what they would have to save, what they would have to spend, and then whatever is left can be used for these installment payments and high purchase, and then that would work.
Coming back to the big institutions and the big transactions, I mean, all too often we hear that they're complaining about heavy taxes and being stifled and squeezed. Business is not competitive, interest rates and everything. So, in one breath, this group of people are complaining. In the same breath, you also say no. There are too many loopholes and there are too much slipping away. Where is the balance?
The balance comes in if we all set up. We all comply with the tax law. Those who are to pay on time. Then it will down on us to ensure that anybody who is trying to cheat the system is singled out. I believe that if compliance levels improve, these loopholes are blocked, we can have reductions in taxes and everybody will be comfortable. Because if you have a very high tax rate, the incentive to evade and avoid the tax is higher.
Okay.
But if the tax rates are low, compliance, all things being equal, improves. Because you don't feel the pinch that much when you have to hive off about 5% of your income to tax. But if you have to chop off 25%, it hits you hard in the face. And that is why I believe that all we need to do is to block the loopholes. Because you find out that there was a case last year when the special task force of the GRA went on enforcement in Kumasi, went on a trader trying to lock up her shop. She passed a comment that was striking. That you find people embezzling money, corruption everywhere, you won't recover those monies and you want to take from me. Go and finish recovering those monies before you come to me. You see, so it tells you the taxpayer feels peeved that I pay and somebody squanders the money. And that is why the Supreme Court ruling is very welcome to empower the Auditor General to go after every loss of money. That will bring a sense of accountability. That will then ease the thoughts of people who think, why should I pay and somebody else wastes it? Accountability should be the key. And in that case, we need not only recover, we punish the person. And I think that once you name a person, recover and punish, the three are all shameful. So you don't need to extend and waste your time and effort to shame that person. Supposing we have notables in society that have been caught in the web of corruption and embezzlement. And interestingly, corruption and embezzlement forms 3% of the illicit financial flows. That was per the 2014 Global Integrity Initiative report. In the 2015 one release, it has grown up from 3% to 5%. So corruption and embezzlement is increasing. And to think of it, if you read in the papers that the chairman of a board has taken $1.2 million, then you wonder, so is that how my tax money is being used? And you hear of the institution standards authority workers complain that no wonder the contractor is slow in work and we are calling and nobody is responding. Apparently people have been compromised. You read of $4.5 million being disputed here and there on National Communication Authority, and people wonder, is that the best way to... And these are all illicit financial flows. Illicit because these are monies for the state to be used to provide for the public services of the citizens, which a few individuals and people have taken. It's wrongful.
I'm going to take a break, and then when I come back, I just find out from our tax expert, how do we do it? Do you probably divide the country into 4 or 5 and say, okay, now I'm hitting the banks, let's close the gap. And then after, you go to the ports. Because it seems to be so much and so widespread. Where does one start? And how do you even finish? Don't go. Well, thank you very much for staying. Blocking financial loopholes. That the whole country seems to be like a basket. We're trying to fill it up and it's just leaking and leaking. But you just wonder if the banks are struggling, ports are struggling, financial institutions, big corporations are struggling, the mining sector is struggling. Lawyer, what do you do? I mean, if you are the helm of affairs, do you break things down and tackle one after the other, or just go all out and tackle the whole thing?
I think you go one after the other because the sources of illicit financial flows have been identified. One, we've talked about trade mispricing. How does it occur? At the ports of entry and exit. So you need to look at what is going on at the port. A lot is ongoing still. You try to look at who are these clearing agents? What role do they play? What is the level of collusion? And so now you have a single window. People say it's a single double window, be it as it may, there's still a system. So you have a paperless system of clearance, that everything is automated. Most of the issues of corruption, embezzlement, bribery occurs when there is that human interaction. And that is what the computerization ceases to break. If it breaks it down, then you don't even meet the person to start any negotiation. You cannot kind of talk to the IT system to do you a favor, to reduce, to apply a lower rate than what you should have paid. Once your items are loaded onto the system, the rates applicable are imposed, the duty rate comes out, you will settle. So we expect that that would. And then one thing the system also does, once you key in the items, it is able to verify the price comparisons from the source country. Okay. So if you under declare, it will adjust it. And that can be dealt with looking at the trade mispricing. So you look first to get a system going, everybody come through the same route, the documents are vetted, and the actual price is determined. So it stems the tide of the under invoicing. Loss of revenue by way of import duties will be prevented. You move from there, you look at the financial institutions. They all have know your customer, KYC. They all have to file returns with the Financial Intelligence Center on suspicious transactions. How well is this being done? What are the sanctions being applied? Can we hear what is going on as far as compliance level is concerned? We know of instances of Financial Intelligence Center and the Economic and Organized Crime Office with cases in court. The financial court is dealing with some of them. Because once you pick up certain information, it will be suspicious until you can validate it, and then the court processes would work. Once we are done with that, transfer pricing, as I indicated, the Ghana Revenue Authority has the transfer pricing unit. They have the transfer pricing regulations. Can we find out what else is missing in terms of the comparable database to let them be able to verify the price levels that are being charged between related parties? And then can we boost their capabilities? If they need more staff, can we get them trained and deploy them on the audits that have to be undertaken? And then we can deal with the transfer pricing issue. Once it comes to the embezzlement and the corruption, thankfully the Auditor General has been empowered to set up and recover all those. I think that once we try recovering, it has that preventive tendency inbuilt. Because once you find out that all those who were able to take it are not getting away with it, why would you join the bandwagon? And so I think that that is how we need to segment and deal with the illicit financial flows. But it shouldn't be difficult.
The Auditor General issue, I remember, Occupy Ghana repeatedly sort of reminding him of the powers which he had to go and, take monies back that have been misappropriated belonging to the state. And they date all the way back to 92. And, there isn't one attorney, Auditor General that's gotten up and said, listen, this is wrong, pay me back the money. Culture, political will, attitude, fear, panic. Has anybody been able to find out why? That as an Auditor General, if somebody is taking state money, you can't say, well, I'm giving you 3 months, bring the money back, or I take you to court or I'll sell your house.
I think that period is gone, and we need to look forward, considering the Supreme Court judgment that has empowered the Auditor General that, yes, your law empowers you to do that, and you have to do it. And I believe he has taken up the challenge, and we are going to hear the results, because it's good that the bill on the special prosecutor, the independent prosecutor, is being considered, because he is the one who is going to assist, and that is where a lot of the issues must go through. So things must follow one another. Once it is the bill is done, the independent prosecutor is appointed, I'm sure that Ghanaians will see the results of this issue of Occupy Ghana having been able to assist us to get the Auditor General to be empowered to do what the law allows him to do.
Well, while on the subject of money and the lack of it, 1 billion Chinese cash coming. Baumia reveals. Dr. Baumia has been to China, spoken to the Chinese, and they're promising to give us $19 billion. And we're leveraging it with our bauxite. We've done it before. Bui Dam, we leverage it with our cocoa. Gave some cocoa, got Bui Dam built. So here we are, we have bauxite. We are leveraging the bauxite to get 19 billion in. Probably it's good news to bring the money in to start probably hiring more people to check, make sure that things go right. But what's your position on $19 billion coming in?
The position is straight. As long as you cannot generate domestic resources to build your country, you would have no option than to borrow. The issue takes rather a political twist in terms of what the current government said to the previous government when they were on the other side and seeming to follow the trend. Well, you can give all the explanations and say, well, from our budget, when we ran a budget deficit, it showed that we would borrow. But were you that explicit? Because now you find out that the previous government indicates 1 billion, you said we had increased our debt to GDP ratio. Now yours is 19 billion. Which one is increasing our debt GDP ratio?
That's the new GDP.
Somebody was asking, what is the difference between a loan, a debt, a grant, credit arrangement, trade credit? Wondering, is it a matter of semantics, terminology? My issue is, well, they all comes with strings. How do the strings work? With a loan, you pay interest. With a grant, you are directed what to do with it, how to apply it. With an aid, you need to meet certain criteria to qualify to be assisted. So in all of them, you will be dictated to. The question is, if you don't want to be dictated to, you put your house in order. Show reason why the person is coming to assist and not direct you.
I remember when Ghana was going to get 3 billion. And everybody was political. Somewhere within me, I was a bit sad thinking, a whole sovereign nation, scribbling over 3 billion. I mean, you look at the books of, Apple, you look at Coca-Cola, these are just companies. And, the monies they are quoting, even though they have no gold, no sea, no land, and the companies is like more powerful than your whole country. As a Ghanaian, maybe a little bit of chip on my shoulder. So here I am, government now says, I'm going to get 20 billion. Yeah, that's a game changer. But then I panic, think, is the house in order enough to get 20 billion? 3 billion, I thought, look, we are too cheap. Now they are bringing me what to show we are not cheap. I'm thinking, is the house in order? So I mean, what should we do? Do we borrow small? Do we go big?
I think there is a saying that you have to dream big, pray big, and you achieve big results. So if you pray small, dream small, your results will be small. The challenge for me, as I said, taking out the political issues connected with the borrowing, for me, borrowing depends more or less what you are going to apply it to. And they need to do a cost-benefit analysis before you do the borrowing. If it's for bauxite, so far, what are the feasibility studies? What are the plans on the ground? Are we now going to borrow to invest in doing the feasibility study, or we have something on paper that immediately we get the funds we are rolling out? These are the issues that I want us to deal with. We have a National Development Planning Commission. What is the plan of the country? Which of them have we tied it to? Are we drawing up a new development plan? We need to get all these and get the country have one policy that every government comes to feed into it. Then we can get the long-term building on structures that have been left behind. But if we go for the money and have just a new paradigm shift, the question is, we will leave debts to be inherited and still will not see our way clear.
I mean, gold, hasn't done enough for us. Diamond didn't even surface. Cocoa is plodding along. So maybe this is our new gold. Oil is just on the, on our lips. We don't know whether it's adding or taking away from it, but somewhere in the sea. So could this be our new gold? Let's, put our basket in this bauxite, 19 billion.
As to whether it will be the new gold, I think it's more or less looking at what the outcome would be. That cannot be estimated now. Because once you take the decision and you implement, once we have to see the results, we have to wait and measure it. But I think that if we are to learn from history, our development agenda, where it has taken, you've mentioned gold, timber, bauxite, where did it, cocoa. Even now with the challenges of cocoa and fertilizer shortages and prices of fertilizer, is that where we want to be? We take the oil, which are the priority sectors we identified: agri infrastructure, capacity building, payment of interest on borrowing. The question is, what went into all these sectors? We took agri. If we say agri is the backbone of the nation, how much of the annual budget funding amount was channeled towards agri? A woeful 8% growing gradually to about 13%, compared to what would have gone to capacity building. And interestingly, you look at the Public Interest Accountability Committee report, and it tells us that if you look at the over $85 million that was put at capacity building for 2016 was used to pay scholarship arrears.
Arrears? Scholarship
arrears. And I keep asking myself, which were those scholarships? Because we keep reading Ghanaians are being thrown out of school, thrown out of their accommodation out there. And then we have people here who need help to study, to complete and contribute. Which of the scholarships are we talking about? It was transferred to Scholarship Secretariat to pay outstanding loans. What went to agri? What are we using? Are we not being able to assist them in terms of agri being the backbone of the nation? What could we not support to pay for the fertilizer for them to apply? Then when they get their produce, we can recover. You can give it to them as a support, not free, but he needs to invest, get the produce, and be able to. We have private sector doing a lot of such schemes. Masara Nazaki of Wienko. They get you all the implements, the fertilizer you produce, and then they find the market, take their cost of the implements, and the rest is yours. Is it difficult? If private sector can achieve that, what can government achieve?
You think we should tread cautiously? I mean, one of the things which also strike me is, when we went for the $3 billion loan, I mean, the Chinese said we were not able to meet the criteria to earn the $3 billion. So even the $1 billion which we got, eventually they had to come and take the same $1 billion, build the gas or pretty, whatever it is. I wonder how many came here, apart from the security guards and those who are sweeping, how much of the $1 billion came here? The $2 billion, we were not equipped enough to earn. I mean, I wonder, are we going to now be equipped already and armed with good feasibility studies to take 19 billion?
That's the question I keep asking, that you have to learn lessons from the past. Taking the 3 billion, we did not meet certain criteria. We couldn't get the 2. According to the delegation led by the Vice President, they've been able to discuss it. Everything is being sorted out. To what extent? What were those hiccups? What measures have been put in place to address those? Because like I keep saying, you need to get ready and hit the road when the funds start coming. What preparedness have you put yourself in? That is indeed what we should be thinking about.
I mean, repayment.
Because like we keep saying, if you take the 2017 budget, the total revenue expectation is in the region of the 40, and then you are getting almost half of that coming in. You know what that means to blowing up the economy? Are you able to absorb that capacity?
I keep saying that, even that 1 billion or the 3 billion,
yes.
We did not have enough local capacity, enough technology power to spend 3 billion, i.e. whether it was railways or building a ship or we needed to import the brain power, the technology, everything. So, I mean, with 19 billion, I mean, that's a huge amount of money to spend.
But interestingly, I don't think the 19 billion is coming in one bulk chunk in a year. it is going to be spread. For example, they've identified some banks that will get some support in terms of funding businesses. They are talking about those one district, one factory that will qualify under that project. So at least it's been segmented and it's not hitting at a go. It may spread over a period. But the question is, we want to see what is that plan? Each year, how much is coming? Which sectors are they going? What is the preparedness of the sector to absorb and roll that out? Because you heard that the AGI was represented. They also have their sectors that they want to collaborate with the Chinese. So a lot may come by way of support, and the amount we are seeing is the value of the support.
But the good news is maybe we're not paying back this 19 million in any cash. They are taking the bauxite. So there's no money that's coming in and we have to work and go and pay some interest. We have the bauxite to leverage. So go and dig some. I mean, if you're giving us 20 million, dig 100 million.
It's still a payment. It's still a payment, because if he agrees with you that I'm going to take your bauxite at $20 a ton, and you agree, and at the time that they start extracting, a ton is $100, you are losing $80 per ton by that arrangement you did to get the facility in the beginning. So my question is, what are our studies to be sure that whatever we would agree on, we've done the proper benchmarking?
So then it goes to the point where we are always unable to negotiate in a strong standing, because as we stand, nobody's even got a nika to mill any bauxite. Nobody's got nothing to dig any bauxite. So here we are with the bauxite, we are totally helpless. So then one will say, well, let's just do this for now. Maybe let's take this 20 billion, give them 100. I hear there's 465 billion worth. So we have 365 billion, and then maybe we will be, in better position to say, okay, as for the rest, the 300 left, we are moving into it and we're doing it ourselves.
Are you moving into it?
Well, technology transfer, we hope that by the time we finish...
Because you see, here you are, you've come, like you said, you've come through the period of timber, you've come through the period of gold,
diamond.
How many refineries do you have? How many gold refineries were ever established in Ghana over all this period? Are we still going to get all these resources in their raw state and export, and be our fate to be determined by the international market? Is that going to be the same story? And that is why I ask, what are plans that have been put in place that these newfound resources are going to be processed and then we get value? Are there any of them that we may even have to use everything here?
But Ali-Nakyea, if I'm giving you 19 billion, you don't tell me where to process anything. I'm giving you 19 billion.
It depends on the agreement you may have. If I have a facility to process it, I'll give you the 19 billion. I'll help you process it. What would you say? Yeah, that's not bad.
But we don't have.
Before you realize it's bad, it's too late.
Because we don't have the facility. And so if I give you 19 billion, but
for example, with our oil find, 2007, first oil port, November 2010, what efforts did we ever make to revamp Tor? Even if we were to borrow to build another refinery that could refine our type of oil, because oil comes in different shades. And still, now we are talking about oil that is bad and has slipped into the market and all that is going on. Is that what we are trying to revisit? So if we make the find, what measures do we put in place to harness? Because you see, interestingly, I keep arguing that oil industry in itself, the petroleum industry, offers very little by way of employment. Where the chunk of the employment is in the value chain, the petrochemical industry. How many people know that fertilizer is a byproduct of the petrochemical industry? Certain products, medicines, detergent, a whole lot of things along the value chain. What measures have we put in place just to extract and export, load the tankers, and struggle with reading the flow meter? With accusations they are using dipstick as against flow meter. Which of them are we safeguarding? Because we already have that cycle of debt that we get disputes here and there, but at the end of the day, the disputes are only on the amounts. ECG owes VRA owes another owes, all in, going to tell us that indeed our energy crisis is one of financial, not technical. Something that has been drummed over the years. We are still within it. The debts are still there.
Ali, let me bring you back to this 2 billion, 1.7 billion issue and spread the thing with regards to the gold industry. Now here I am, here digging my gold. You are there digging yours, doing your galamsey. He's digging theirs. Together, probably we've dug out about 20 kilograms of gold. Nobody knows how much you got. Nobody knows how much I got. Maybe the big corporations, they would have to declare some of them. I mean, so how then do you sit down and regulate and say, look, this 14 billion that I'm using, I'm going to cut it. Cut it from where? You don't even know who's digging and who's taking.
It's not to me about who is digging. I keep saying we don't eat gold in Ghana. We don't bath with gold. It's not soap.
No.
We don't process it here, apart from 1 or 2 refineries that have come up. Even with them, we can monitor, because if you want to process it, they have to make the necessary documentation. So it means everything leaves. How does it leave? That is where the issue is. So the illicit flow has to do with the routes that they go through. If it is not through appropriate means, it falls into the illicit flows. How many people just walk across the border, porous borders, walks across with a bag around his neck as if he's taking a walk, and so he passes unnoticed. And if somebody is waiting at the other side of the border to continue with the journey, how do you know? I was told a story of an old man who used to always ride a bicycle across the border. You'll find 2 sacks, empty sacks. He will be coming back riding the bike from the Togo side of the border with sand. So they thought, once they asked him, what are you doing, old man? Oh, I prefer the sand from the other side. The texture is good for my building. So they ignored him. Until one customs officer thought of it and said, no, this man is smuggling something, but I just can't put a finger to it. So one day he stopped the old man. He said, old man, just confess to me. I know you are smuggling something, but if you confess to me, I will not do anything to you. I just want to satisfy my curiosity. What are you smuggling? He said, bicycles. Then it dawned on them, they never watched the bicycle he rode across. Slightly used bicycle, rides back a new bicycle. So is it difficult? It took an officer to think that, no, there is something behind what I'm seeing. So we need to probe further.
But is it with our porous borders? And how do you start? With 1 minute, how do we start to at least even halve it?
You see, we have the officers. If they are not adequate, are we not able to take on more? Do we do border patrols? Because Customs Division of GRA, we shouldn't forget they evolved from Customs, Excise, and Preventive Services. So the preventive wing is still in there in Customs Division. What are they preventing? The movement of goods across borders. Are we not able to resource them to do patrols? We used to have the border guards, which was collapsed into, some went into immigration for persons, some went into customs for goods. And thankfully, the Illicit Financial Flow Conference is happening in Ghana this July 12 to 14 at Best Western Premier. And they are bringing all the experts to come and discuss illicit financial flows. I just hope and pray all involved, the institutions, the person, should be at the place to listen. And it's not as if some of us are just raising what does not exist. They have a lot to hear, and how countries have been able to deal with the situation would all be discussed. July 12 to 14 at Best Western.
July
Hosted by the Ministry of Finance.
July 12
to 14.
to 14.
At
July
Best Western Premier Hotel.
July 12 to 14 at Best Western. I think we need the media should be there to mark and find out which institution doesn't turn up. Then we name and shame them. But at least it would go to solve many problems. I want to say thank you very much to Abdullah Ali-Nakyea, tax expert, lawyer, and a lecturer. To you at home, I always give you this number. It's 024 366 2001 024 366 2001. Tantis Fashion, they make my shirts for the show, and on Thursday we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you very much for watching. Ali, thank you so much.
Most welcome. Thank you, Bella.